Imagine a man so committed to his calling that he could turn challenges into victories. This man was Elisha, the prophet who followed Elijah. His life, filled with miracles and profound faith, teaches us that with a deep belief and obedience to God, ordinary lives can be transformed. As we journey through his story, get ready to discover moments that reveal how even the most difficult circumstances can become opportunities for divine intervention. Picture a hot, dusty field where Elisha plows the earth, his routine as familiar as the ground beneath him. But this day, a presence approaches, Elijah, the renowned prophet whose very presence seems to carry the divine. When Elijah throws his cloak over Elisha's shoulders, it's more than a simple gesture. It's a life-altering invitation. This cloak symbolizes a calling, a choice from above. Imagine feeling the weight of destiny in a single moment, realizing you're being asked to leave the familiar behind to step into the unknown. Elisha, without hesitation, leaves the plow and runs after Elijah. In that instant, his life takes a dramatic turn. How often in life do we face seemingly simple moments that have the power to change everything? Elisha's story invites us to recognize these moments and meet them with courage. Before following Elijah, Elisha requests to say goodbye to his family. It's a small but meaningful gesture, showing that even in times of great change, respect for where we come from matters. Rather than abandoning his past, Elisha embraces it with gratitude, preparing himself for what lies ahead. Returning to his family, Elisha does something extraordinary. He sacrifices his oxen and burns his plowing equipment, offering a feast to his community. This act is more than generosity, it's a declaration. He's not just leaving his past behind, he's making sure there's no way back. His old life, symbolized by the tools he used daily, is now gone. From this point forward, he's all in. His decision reminds us that sometimes, to truly move forward, we have to let go of what we know. This kind of trust, this leap of faith, requires courage. Following a divine calling isn't easy. Elisha left behind everything familiar, trusting in a future he couldn't yet see. Elijah, on his part, understood the significance of passing his cloak. This was more than choosing a successor. It was a commitment to mentoring Elisha, preparing him for the challenges ahead. In this gesture, we see the power of mentorship. True leadership isn't just about holding power, it's about empowering others. Elijah called Elisha to something greater, and Elisha's life would never be the same. With his old life behind him, Elisha began his journey alongside Elijah, learning from one of the greatest prophets. Each step beside Elijah was a lesson, each moment filled with wisdom. Elisha wasn't just learning through words, but through experience. This was a school of life, with lessons that would prepare him for his future mission. One of the most defining moments came when Elijah confronted the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. Elisha witnessed the incredible moment when Elijah, with a simple prayer, called down fire from heaven to consume a drenched altar. It was a display of faith so powerful that it left a lasting mark on Elisha, showing him the reality of God's power. During his time with Elijah, Elisha was more than an observer. He served and assisted Elijah, learning the value of humility and dedication. Their relationship was transformative, as every miracle and piece of advice from Elijah became a foundation on which Elisha would build his own path. The courage, resilience, and faith Elisha saw in Elijah inspired him and helped shape his own character. As they journeyed together, Elisha grew in understanding the true nature of miracles. Each miracle was more than a show of power. It was a testament to God's faithfulness and compassion. Elisha saw that miracles came from a place of love and mercy, revealing God's heart for his people. These moments were shaping Elisha, teaching him that his role was to be a channel of divine grace and justice. Elijah's courage and conviction in facing challenges left a deep impact on Elisha. They faced trials together, each victory strengthening Elisha's conviction that he was on the right path. These were years of preparation, refining Elisha into a prophet who would one day lead with his own wisdom and authority. Elijah's cloak, now Elisha's symbol, carried a powerful meaning. It was a reminder of his calling and responsibility, a token of the legacy he was chosen to carry forward. The time came for Elijah's departure, marking one of the most remarkable events in Elisha's life. Elijah knew his time on earth was ending and asked Elisha to stay back while he journeyed forward. But Elisha, aware of the significance of the moment, refused to leave his side, following him to Bethel, then to Jericho, and finally to the Jordan River. Along the way, other prophets warned Elisha of what was about to happen, but he remained silent, focused on the moment ahead. Upon reaching the Jordan, Elijah performed one final miracle, striking the water with his cloak and parting the river for them to cross. This wasn't just a miracle, it was a sacred act, symbolizing the transition that was about to take place. After crossing, Elijah turned to Elisha and asked what he could do for him before leaving. Elisha's response was bold. He asked for a double portion of Elijah's spirit. It wasn't a request for power, but for the strength and wisdom to carry out his new role. As they spoke, a chariot of fire appeared, separating the two. Elijah was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind, and Elisha, watching in awe, tore his clothes in mourning, overcome with emotion. Left with Elijah's cloak, he returned to the Jordan and struck the water, asking, "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" The waters parted once again, confirming that Elisha now carried the same divine authority as his mentor. This was the beginning of Elisha's journey as a prophet, his first act affirming his place as Israel's spiritual leader. The prophets who saw Elisha's return recognized immediately that Elijah's spirit now rested upon him. They came to him bowing in acknowledgement of his new role. Elisha wasn't just following in Elijah's footsteps, he was now the one to guide Israel. The weight of his new role and the power of the mantle were clear to him, marking a shift from student to leader. With Elijah's cloak now resting on his shoulders, Elisha embraced his destiny. His journey was only beginning, but he was equipped to face the challenges that lay ahead. Elisha's first miracle after taking up Elijah's mantle happened in Jericho, where he healed the city's poisoned waters. The people had suffered because the water was harmful and the land was unproductive. Elisha requested a new bowl with salt, and upon throwing it into the water source, he declared, "This is what the Lord says, I have healed these waters. Never again will they cause death or make the land unfruitful." Through this act, Elisha turned a simple need into a demonstration of divine power, revealing that God's compassion extends to every part of life, even something as ordinary as water. Another moment soon followed, this time involving a widow who came to Elisha in despair. Her husband had died, and creditors threatened to take her sons as slaves. In her time of need, she sought Elisha's help. Elisha instructed her to gather as many empty jars as she could and pour oil from her small flask into them. Miraculously, the oil kept flowing until every jar was full. This act didn't just free her from debt, it provided for her future, showing that God's provision can exceed our expectations when we trust in Him fully. In one of his most profound miracles, Elisha raised the son of a woman from Shunammite who had shown him great hospitality. The woman's son had died unexpectedly, and she sought Elisha's help with unwavering faith. Elisha went to the child, lay upon him and prayed intensely. As he did, the child sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes, alive once more. This miracle not only restored joy to a grieving family, but solidified the faith of the surrounding community, demonstrating the power of faith over even the greatest of losses. In another instance, Elisha healed Naaman, the commander of the Syrian army, who suffered from leprosy. A young Israeli servant girl suggested Naaman seek Elisha for healing. Although Naaman initially resisted the prophet's instructions, he finally dipped himself in the Jordan River 7 times, as Elisha had directed, and his skin was restored. This miracle revealed that God's power is available to anyone who humbles themselves and believes, regardless of their background or status. Elisha's miracles were not always grand gestures. He also showed God's care in everyday matters. When a prophet's borrowed iron axe head fell into the river, Elisha made it float, proving that even the small needs of life matter to God. Elisha's journey as a prophet was filled with lessons of faith and obedience, often tested in ways that revealed God's boundless power. In another instance, the city of Jericho faced a severe problem. Its water was undrinkable and harmful, causing barrenness throughout the land, and a few ears of grain, mirroring the miracles of provision that would come generations later through Jesus. Each of these acts demonstrated that God's presence could be felt in both extraordinary and everyday events, reminding the people that he was always near. Elisha's journey continued, revealing how God's power could intervene in even the most desperate situations. During a severe famine, a group of prophets was gathered with Elisha when someone added poisonous herbs to a pot of stew. Realizing the danger, Elisha added flour to the pot, miraculously purifying it and making the food safe to eat. This small act showed that God could transform situations of potential harm into blessings, providing for his people even in the bleakest times. On another occasion, Elisha guided a group of prophets in building a new dwelling. During construction, a borrowed axe head fell into the river, a serious problem as iron tools were precious. Elisha, showing that no issue is too small for God, threw a piece of wood into the water, causing the iron to float. This simple yet miraculous act reminded everyone that God's concern extends to even the most ordinary needs in our lives. Faith and obedience can make seemingly insignificant problems become opportunities for divine intervention. Elisha's journey as a prophet was filled with lessons of faith and obedience, often tested in ways that revealed God's boundless power. In another instance, the city of Jericho faced a severe problem. Its water was undrinkable and harmful, causing barrenness throughout the land. Elisha asked for a bowl of salt, and upon throwing it into the water source, declared it healed. This miracle showed God's transformative power over nature itself, reminding the people of Jericho that with faith, even the most dire situations could be reversed. In yet another instance of divine provision, a widow approached Elisha, burdened by debts that threatened to tear her family apart. Following Elisha's instructions, she gathered every empty vessel she could find and began pouring oil from a small flask, which miraculously kept flowing until every container was filled. This not only paid her debts but also provided enough for her family's future. This miracle illustrated how God can multiply even the smallest resources to meet our needs, especially when we take steps of faith in his guidance. One of the most memorable miracles performed by Elisha was the resurrection of the Shunammite woman's son. This woman had shown Elisha hospitality and received a promise of a son in return. When the child died suddenly, she approached Elisha, unwavering in her faith that he could help. Elisha went to her home, laid upon the child, and prayed until life returned to him. This miracle wasn't just about restoring life. It affirmed the community's faith in God's power over life and death, reinforcing the truth that even in moments of profound loss, God is near. Elisha's ministry also extended beyond the borders of Israel. In a powerful moment of healing, he restored Naaman, the commander of the Syrian army, from leprosy. A young servant girl had suggested Naaman seek help from Elisha, and though he initially hesitated, he eventually followed Elisha's instructions to dip 7 times in the Jordan River. When Naaman emerged healed, it was clear that God's compassion extended even to those beyond Israel. This event showed that anyone, regardless of their background, could experience God's love and healing if they approached him with humility and faith. In times of war, Elisha's role as a prophet was invaluable. When the king of Syria plotted to ambush Israel, Elisha repeatedly warned the king of Israel about the attacks, frustrating the plans of the enemy. Furious, the king of Syria sent an army to capture Elisha. Surrounded by enemy forces, Elisha's servant panicked, but Elisha reassured him, praying that God would open his eyes. In that moment, the servant saw the mountain filled with horses and chariots of fire surrounding them, a powerful reminder of divine protection. Elisha then prayed for the enemy to be struck with blindness, leading them directly into Israel's hands. This act not only saved lives but also demonstrated that God's wisdom and protection can guide his people through even the most dangerous situations. Elisha's response to the Syrian army's capture showed both wisdom and mercy. When the Israeli king asked if he should kill them, Elisha advised him instead to offer food and water before sending them back. This unexpected act of kindness diffused hostilities and revealed that God's power could be wielded with compassion. It was a reminder that even in moments of conflict, mercy has a transformative power that can turn enemies into allies. Through all these acts, Elisha's life exemplified that God's power is limitless and that his care extends to every aspect of life, big or small, whether by purifying food, resurrecting the dead, or protecting Israel from its enemies. Elisha demonstrated that God's presence was active and constant, providing hope and guidance in every situation. Elisha's faith was tested yet again during a famine caused by the Syrian siege of Samaria. The city was starving, and desperation filled the streets. People turned against Elisha, blaming him for their suffering and threatening his life. But Elisha, confident in God's promise, declared that the famine would end within a day. And indeed, his prophecy came true. 4 lepers stumbled upon the enemy's abandoned camp, filled with food and provisions. The Syrian army, fearing an attack, had fled, leaving behind everything the starving people of Samaria needed. Elisha's prophecy was fulfilled, proving once again that even in times of despair, God's promises remain true. Elisha also confronted issues of justice, showing compassion for those who suffered unfairly. A widow, one of the sons of the prophets, faced the prospect of her children being taken as slaves because of her husband's debts. Elisha's response was immediate. He miraculously multiplied her oil supply, allowing her to sell enough to pay her debts and keep her family together. This small yet powerful act showed that God cares deeply for those facing injustice, and that he provides for his people in ways that go beyond their immediate needs. Through his life, Elisha also faced the challenges of dealing with people who lacked integrity. His servant Gehazi, for example, lied and succumbed to greed after Naaman's healing. Though Elisha had refused Naaman's gifts, Gehazi pursued Naaman and deceitfully requested them. When confronted, Gehazi faced severe consequences. Elisha declared that Naaman's leprosy would cling to Gehazi and his descendants forever. This stark outcome underscored the importance of integrity in service to God, revealing how greed and dishonesty can bring lasting repercussions. Gehazi's story serves as a reminder that living in alignment with God's values is essential. In moments of conflict and war, Elisha continued to provide counsel and guidance. His prophetic insights saved Israel from multiple ambushes, reinforcing the king's trust in divine intervention. Elisha's role extended beyond performing miracles. He was a source of wisdom and strategy, showing that God's guidance is available in all areas of life, including the political and military realms. Each action he took reminded Israel's leaders that divine guidance, when followed, could protect and direct them even through the fiercest challenges. Elisha's compassion extended to the practical needs of those around him. In another instance, a group of prophets accidentally poisoned a stew during a famine. When they realized the danger, they called on Elisha, who added flour to the pot, neutralizing the poison. This miracle demonstrated God's care for even the simplest needs and reminded people that divine intervention is possible in every situation, no matter how minor it may seem. Elisha's authority as a prophet was not always accepted without resistance. In one incident, a group of youths mocked him, calling him bald. Elisha cursed them, and 2 bears emerged from the woods, attacking 42 of the youths. While this severe response may seem harsh, it underscored the importance of respecting divine authority and reverence for God's servants. It was a sobering reminder that disrespecting God's chosen can have serious consequences. In every aspect of his ministry, Elisha not only performed great miracles, but also taught people the importance of faith and reverence for God. Each act of healing, provision, and protection reminded the people that God was involved in their lives. Elisha was more than a prophet. He was a living example of divine love and power, showing that God's presence is not distant but accessible to everyone who believes. Throughout his life, Elisha often reflected on the responsibilities and challenges of being God's prophet. He understood that each miracle, prophecy, and decision carried immense weight, affecting not only his life but also the lives of the people he served. This awareness kept him humble and dependent on God's wisdom, After performing the miracle of resurrecting the Shunammite woman's son, Elisha recognized that he was simply an instrument of God's compassion. His reflections on faith, both his own and that of those around him, reinforced his understanding of what it meant to trust in God fully. Elisha's role as a leader also brought him to moments of deep reflection, especially when he confronted disobedience and lack of faith in others. Gehazi's betrayal served as a vivid reminder of how easily one can stray from integrity. It was a lesson for Elisha and those around him that greed and dishonesty can erode not only one's character, but also one's future. Elisha often found himself balancing justice with mercy, a delicate responsibility that required constant alignment with God's guidance. Every decision he made was a testament to his faith and obedience, reflecting his understanding that being a prophet was not about wielding power, but about serving with humility and love. Elisha's introspective moments, his times of solitude and prayer, were crucial in renewing his strength and focus. Through these reflections, he maintained a deep connection with God, ensuring that his ministry was always rooted in divine wisdom. As Elisha's ministry continued, his influence and impact extended beyond Israel's borders and deep into the hearts of the people. Each miracle and act of guidance served to strengthen the faith of those around him, illustrating that God's power was ever present, even in the midst of daily struggles. Elisha's life had become a testament to God's power, showcasing how faith and obedience could bridge the gap between the earthly and the divine. One of the pivotal lessons Elisha imparted was that God's compassion knows no boundaries. He demonstrated this when he healed Naaman, the Syrian commander, who had come to Israel seeking a cure for leprosy. Naaman's healing was a reminder that God's love and power extend beyond Israel to those with a genuine heart for faith. This experience revealed that humility and obedience were the pathways to experiencing God's miracles. Naaman's journey taught that God's blessings aren't limited by nationality, and the humbling nature of his healing would impact generations to come. Elisha's miracles often served as parables in action, revealing deeper truths about life and faith. For instance, the miracle of purifying the poisonous stew wasn't just about making food safe to eat. It symbolized God's ability to cleanse and renew. In times of famine, when resources were scarce and people were desperate, Elisha's intervention was a reminder that even in the most challenging times, God's provision could turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. Elisha's guidance wasn't always popular, especially among those who were more interested in earthly power than in divine truth. One such instance was when the Israeli king, seeking to blame someone for the prolonged famine, turned his anger toward Elisha. However, Elisha remained steadfast, prophesying that the famine would soon end. This bold declaration in the face of hostility underscored his unwavering trust in God's promises. The fulfillment of this prophecy, the discovery of the abandoned Syrian camp filled with food and provisions, highlighted God's faithfulness and taught the people to place their trust in divine timing. Elisha's life was also a testament to the power of mentorship. His relationship with Elijah from the beginning of his journey to Elijah's dramatic ascension left an indelible mark on him. The mantle Elijah passed to Elisha was more than a symbol. It was a call to carry on a legacy. In every miracle Elisha performed, there was a hint of Elijah's influence, showing that mentorship in the faith goes beyond words and is embodied in actions. Elijah's mentorship had taught Elisha that a true prophet doesn't seek power for its own sake, but serves with humility, courage, and an unwavering devotion to God. A crucial aspect of Elisha's ministry was his role as a leader. He guided the people and the kings of Israel through moments of political and social turmoil. This role required not only prophetic insight, but also wisdom and discretion. Elisha's leadership style, marked by compassion and a willingness to forgive, often stood in stark contrast to the harsh realities of the time. For instance, his decision to spare the captured Syrian soldiers and feed them rather than kill them showcased a new perspective on leadership, one rooted in mercy rather than vengeance. This act disarmed the enemies of Israel in a way that no battle could. Elisha's ministry continued to be marked by miracles that demonstrated God's concern for everyday needs. From multiplying a small amount of food to feed a large crowd to making an iron axe head float, Elisha showed that God's power could meet both the smallest and the greatest challenges. These acts reinforced the message that God is always near, that no request is too small, and that faith can turn the mundane into the miraculous. In addition to his miracles, Elisha's life was marked by moments of deep introspection and reflection. He understood that each miracle he performed, each prophecy he delivered, and each decision he made held great weight and responsibility. The trust the people placed in him as a prophet and leader required him to seek God's wisdom continuously. He recognized that his calling was not about personal glory, but about serving as a bridge between God and his people, and he remained steadfast in his commitment to this role throughout his life. Elisha's leadership was tested again during a period of conflict with Syria. The Syrian king had become frustrated with Elisha's ability to predict his every move, foiling his plans to attack Israel. In an attempt to capture him, the king sent a large army to surround the city where Elisha was staying. Seeing the army, Elisha's servant was filled with fear, but Elisha, calm and unwavering, prayed for God to open his servant's eyes. Suddenly the servant saw the mountain covered with horses and chariots of fire, God's divine army, ready to protect them. This moment underscored the reality that those who place their trust in God are never alone, no matter how overwhelming the opposition. When the Syrian soldiers closed in, Elisha prayed for them to be struck with blindness and led them to Samaria, the heart of Israel. Once there, he prayed again, restoring their sight. Instead of ordering their execution, Elisha advised the king to feed them and send them back to their king. This remarkable act of mercy turned enemies into allies, demonstrating the power of kindness over cruelty. The Syrians did not return to raid Israel, a testament to the lasting impact of compassion. Elisha's role was not confined to the miraculous or the political. He was deeply involved in the spiritual lives of the people. He taught the importance of integrity, as demonstrated in the story of his servant Gehazi, who succumbed to greed and deception. Gehazi's actions had serious consequences, resulting in him being afflicted with leprosy. This incident served as a stark warning to those who would serve God, that true faithfulness requires both honesty and humility. Gehazi's fate was a reminder to the community that God's work must be approached with reverence and purity of heart. Beyond his public acts, Elisha often spent time alone, seeking guidance and wisdom from God. He understood that his strength and clarity came from these moments of solitude and communion. For Elisha, prayer was not just a ritual, it was a lifeline, a means of staying connected to the divine purpose that guided his every move. In his quiet moments, he would reflect on the responsibility of carrying God's word and the importance of leading with both justice and compassion. These reflections strengthened his resolve, ensuring that his decisions were always aligned with God's will. The legacy Elisha left behind was one of profound impact. Each miracle he performed, each lesson he imparted, and each moment of mercy he extended served as a lasting testimony to God's power and love. Elisha's life showed that being a prophet wasn't about grand gestures or public acclaim, but about serving faithfully in both big and small moments. He understood that his role was to reveal God's presence in every circumstance, reminding the people that they were never truly alone. As Elisha grew older, he became more aware of the legacy he would leave behind. His thoughts turned to the future, to the generations that would come after him. He understood that his life was a model, an example of faith and dedication that others would look to for guidance. Elisha's teachings and actions were a roadmap for those who would follow, showing them that a life dedicated to God's service was one of purpose and fulfillment. He knew that his role was not just to lead for his time, but to prepare others to continue the work he had begun. In his final years, Elisha's impact continued to resonate throughout Israel. He had not only guided a nation through times of crisis, but had also left a spiritual foundation that would endure for generations. Through his life, Elisha taught that faith is not static. It requires action, humility, and a constant alignment with God's will. His legacy was not measured by the number of miracles he performed, but by the lives he touched and the faith he inspired. Elisha's story invites us to reflect on our own lives, to consider the impact we want to leave on the world. Just as Elisha's journey was marked by faith, humility, and dedication, we are challenged to live with purpose and intention, to seek ways to serve and uplift those around us. His story reminds us that God's power is present in every moment, from the miraculous to the mundane, and that each act of faith, no matter how small, contributes to a greater purpose. And so, as Elisha's life drew to a close, his legacy continued to shine as a beacon of hope and inspiration. He had shown that true greatness lies not in seeking personal gain, but in serving with a heart of compassion and a spirit of humility. Elisha's journey was one of unwavering faith, a testament to the power of a life dedicated to God. As we remember Elisha's story, let us ask ourselves, how can we apply these teachings in our lives? In what ways can we demonstrate faith and humility in our actions, even in the smallest moments? Just as Elisha's miracles revealed God's love and power, our lives can become a testimony to the divine presence that surrounds us every day. Whether facing challenges or celebrating victories, we are called to live with the same passion and commitment that defined Elisha's life. Call to action, an invitation to embrace a life of faith, service, and compassion. Let us take inspiration from his example and strive to make a difference in the world around us, knowing that with God's guidance, even the smallest acts can have a lasting impact. In the later years of Elisha's life, his influence only deepened, reaching further across the nation of Israel and even into the hearts of surrounding nations. His presence and unwavering commitment to God's purpose became a cornerstone of Israel's spiritual and moral guidance. The respect Elisha commanded extended beyond his prophetic abilities. It was rooted in his genuine compassion, wisdom, and the integrity he displayed in every aspect of his life. As his journey continued, Elisha's legacy became a powerful example of what it means to live a life wholly dedicated to serving God and others. Elisha's life continued to echo the teachings and mentorship he received from Elijah, but with a unique touch that was entirely his own. Elisha embraced Elijah's spirit of courage, but he also brought a gentler, more compassionate approach to his ministry. He understood the importance of both strength and tenderness in his leadership. This dual approach allowed him to reach people from all walks of life, from kings to ordinary citizens, showing that faith transcends social and economic boundaries. Through this, he taught that true leadership is not only about authority, but also about understanding and empathy. One of the most remarkable aspects of Elisha's ministry was his dedication to protecting and nurturing the sons of the prophets, the next generation of spiritual leaders. He saw them as a future source of strength and faith for Israel, and he took his responsibility to guide and teach them seriously. He provided them with not only practical wisdom but also spiritual strength, reminding them that faith is sustained through devotion and resilience. Elisha's care for these young prophets ensured that his legacy would live on, a legacy of faithfulness and dedication to God's calling. Elisha's ministry continued to be marked by extraordinary miracles, each one reinforcing the belief that God's power was limitless. He demonstrated that God was always present, ready to provide and protect. Even in his later years, Elisha remained an active force of faith, showing that God's work does not diminish with age, but often grows stronger, deepening in wisdom and compassion. Throughout his life, Elisha remained a trusted advisor to Israel's kings. His counsel was sought during times of political turmoil and conflict, and his wisdom often provided clarity amidst confusion. During one of Israel's wars with Moab, Elisha's counsel became the difference between victory and defeat. In response to the king's call for help, Elisha instructed the soldiers to dig ditches in the valley, promising that God would fill them with water. When morning came, the valley was filled with water, and as the Moabite army looked down, the water appeared red like blood. Believing their enemies had fought each other, the Moabites let down their guard, only to be defeated by Israel. This miracle was a powerful reminder that God's guidance, even when it defies logic, is always reliable. Elisha's commitment to seeking God's will ensured that his actions aligned with divine purpose rather than personal ambition. He never used his prophetic power for personal gain. Instead, he served selflessly, placing the well-being of his people above all else. Elisha's integrity and devotion became an unspoken lesson for Israel, a model of humility and faithfulness that resonated long after his death. The miracles Elisha performed in his later years became even more profound. They were not only expressions of divine power, but also testimonies of his deep understanding of God's love and compassion. One of the final miracles recorded in Elisha's life was the resurrection of a dead man who had been hastily buried in Elisha's tomb. When the man's body touched Elisha's bones, he was restored to life. This miracle underscored the enduring power of Elisha's faith even beyond death, symbolizing that a life dedicated to God leaves a legacy that continues to impact the world even after it has ended. Elisha's life teaches us that true greatness lies not in public recognition, but in quiet, faithful service. His story challenges us to examine our lives, to consider how we can serve others with humility and integrity. Elisha's example encourages us to embrace our calling with dedication and to seek ways to leave a positive impact on the world around us. He showed that faith is not merely a set of beliefs, but a way of life that shapes our actions and defines our character. As we reflect on Elisha's journey, we are invited to ask ourselves how we can embody the same virtues he displayed. Are we willing to serve without seeking recognition? Are we committed to nurturing and guiding those around us, even when it requires patience and sacrifice? Elisha's story reminds us that a life of purpose and fulfillment comes not from personal gain, but from a commitment to serve and uplift others. The legacy Elisha left was one of humility, strength, and unwavering faith. His life demonstrated that true spiritual power comes from a close relationship with God and a willingness to put others before ourselves. Each miracle he performed, each life he touched, and each lesson he imparted continues to resonate across generations. Elisha's life challenges us to consider the legacy we are building, to strive to live in a way that honors our faith and uplifts those around us. Elisha's journey also reminds us that faith is not a solitary endeavor. Just as he walked alongside Elijah and mentored the sons of the prophets, we too are called to walk with others, to learn from those who came before us, and to guide those who will come after. His life teaches us that faith is strengthened through community, through the shared experience of serving and growing together. As we conclude this reflection on Elisha's life, we are reminded that each of us carries the potential to be a channel of God's love and power. Just as Elisha transformed the lives of those around him, we are invited to consider how our own actions can bring hope and healing to the world. Elisha's story is not merely a tale of ancient miracles. It is a call to live with purpose, to seek ways to make a positive impact, and to embrace a life of faith and service. Let us take inspiration from Elisha's example and strive to make a difference in the lives of those we encounter. His journey reminds us that with faith, courage, and a heart committed to serving others, we can create a legacy that transcends time, a legacy that reflects the love and power of God. Elisha's life challenges us to live with integrity, to pursue our calling with dedication, and to trust that with God's guidance, even the smallest acts of kindness can have a lasting impact. And so, as we remember the life of Elisha, let us carry forward his legacy by embracing our own calling with faith and determination. Just as Elisha's life was a testament to God's power and love, may our lives become a reflection of that same divine presence, bringing light and hope to the world around us. Whether through great miracles or small acts of kindness, each of us has the potential to leave a mark, to make a difference, and to inspire those who come after us.